Welcome. You've arrived in the library of Eldritch Manor. The rain pitter-patters against the ancient window panes, a roaring fire in the hearth. A man in a tuxedo who greeted you at the door bows deeply, leaving the room, and you cast off your raincoat, settling into a warm, creaky leather chair, ready for the night's entertainment. Welcome to Spooky Scary Skeletons, Volume 4. We're so pleased you could join us tonight on All Hallows Eve. For chilling tales, creepypastas, serial killers, and much more. I'm joined tonight, as always, by colleague in Spoopy Things, Mr. Jim Keel.
I'm dead with excitement.
And as always, super producer Todd is in the background making sure everything is according to plan.
I don't like spooky things.
We force him to do this every year. It's great. So, I guess, would you like me to lead off with my story, Jim, or would you like to take the reins for this first one?
As is tradition, you usually do lead off. Unless you want to hear the harrowing tale of email phishing that I've dealt with today.
Listen,
that's
kids,
pretty fucking scary.
If you get a weird fucking email, don't click on the attachments.
Yeah. If you get an email saying that they've got videos of you in compromising fashion, just don't click on it. That's my warning. That way you're not scared.
Compromising videos of you jerking off.
Yeah, that's what it says. That's what the email says.
Why webcam privacy covers are a thing.
I have webcam privacy covers on my laptop, and I don't have a webcam on my desktop. And luckily for me, also, I don't use either of those computers for
which is funny
that task.
Because you would think, like, at that point, you just respond back and be like, "Show me what you got."
Yeah, I'm into it. I'm fucking into it. Send it to my mom.
See what happens. I don't
exactly. Know. All right, but no, as is tradition, our favorite author, Geoff, relay us with a story.
All right, this is a bit of a long one this year, so I apologize.
Okay.
But here we go. The air smelled stale and tinged with wine as I walked the knotted pine floorboards for the first time in years. My breathing was ragged and harsh, my heart beating loudly against my ribcage. I didn't care to be here again. There was too many ghosts in the hallways. This had once been home, but the change of furniture and trinkets adorning the walls made things confusing. It was all out of place. I didn't like it, and once I found Mom, I would talk to her about making some changes. I kept bumping into things as muscle memory took over, and I nearly broke a vase that was tastefully placed on an end table, but I caught it in time. It was caked in several layers of dust, and I sneezed as I put it back down. Great. Now I had allergies to contend with, too. Padding down the hallway, I walked into my old bedroom, which had been converted into an office. There was paper scattered everywhere with boxes and photographs layered in precarious stacks. I turned to face a wall with a corkboard and nearly had a heart attack. Copious amounts of red string were crisscrossing each other, intersecting at maps and newspaper clippings with photos of random strangers. Caught in the middle of the web was a picture that had been taken by my girlfriend 8 years ago. My hair was different, and I didn't have the week-old stubble that I had now, but it was still me. What the fuck was this about? There was a creak on the floorboard outside the hallway, making me jump. Maybe I had woken Mom. Fumbling with my flashlight and my hands shaking frantically, I walked out into the hall to see what was there. The black cat stared at me, its eyes catching the light from the flashlight, making them shine like two torches in the darkness. It mewed at me, greeting me like an old friend. I relaxed and bent down, gesturing for the cat to come closer. It obliged happily, allowing me to scratch behind its ears. It purred gently, and I was happy for a moment. Out of the darkness, a plastic bag was swiftly brought over my head, wrapping tightly against my face. Crying out in surprise, I fell backward, struggling. I looked up to see a brutish figure, muscles rippling with the force of trying to keep me pinned. The face was in shadow. I couldn't make it out. I flailed for a few moments, gasping for air. It never came. I passed out. A gas lantern hissed into life, waking me up. My brain made me gasp for air again, and I sucked in as much as my lungs would allow. There was no more plastic bag, but I was now bound to a chair, my wrists chafing against what felt like a leather belt. Groggy and disoriented, my vision began to come into focus, and I saw I was in the basement, but not the one that I remembered. The room was barren except for a long dining room table in the middle and the gas lantern in question on the wall. Seated behind the table was the British figure, who I could now see was a lady wearing a white shirt and overalls, a bottle of whiskey sitting next to her. It was hard to tell her age, but she wasn't super young. A few wrinkles lined her almond-shaped face. Her shoulders heaved as she rolled her arms and cracked her neck. Her chestnut hair was roughly cut, and her brow was furrowed into deep thought as she looked me up and down. I tried to speak, but my throat seized up, forcing me to cough instead. She stared at me for a beat before taking a swig of the whiskey straight from the bottle. Slamming the bottle down, she wiped her mouth with the sleeve of her shirt. "No," she said in a quiet, slow voice. "I knew you'd always come back here." I cleared my throat, speaking in a raspy voice. "Why the hell am I tied up?" "The authorities got it all wrong. You don't leave after an episode. You have to reset." "I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Can you please untie me?" "This part, though," she said, waving her hand in the air vaguely. "This part I couldn't even begin to understand. It must be some sort of fugue state. Who are you, and what are you doing in this house?" She smirked, taking another swig of whiskey. "Bud, I own this house. I just don't live here." This didn't make any sense. "No, you can't own this house. My mom owned it, and then she willed it to my sister. If she had died, but she's still alive." "Oh, Martin," she whispered gently, "you don't remember, do you?" I stared at her, completely lost. "Who is Martin? My name is Edgar." She drummed her fingers on the table, her expression blank. "One sec, Edgar," she said, getting up from the table. "Don't go anywhere now." She padded quietly up the stairs, and once she had disappeared, I began to rock my chair. That is, I attempted to. Looking down, I saw that the chair had been bolted to the floor. I tried to strain against the leather belt, but it was no use. It was tied too tightly and was painful. A few minutes passed, and she returned, silent as ever, with a cardboard box in her hands. Setting it down on the table, she rummaged inside and brought out a thick yellow file. Opening it, she held it in front of me, careful not to get too close. There was my picture again, this time from a local newspaper. "Local man suspected of murder. Another victim has been claimed by the Granbury killer, bringing the total deaths to 15, but this time, police may have a solid lead. After the latest killing, Chief of Police Haggerty released a statement. A young girl, Marjorie Green, witnessed a man exiting her home at approximately 3 a.m. After calling authorities, she went to check on her mother, who was unfortunately found murdered in her bed. Miss Green believes that the person leaving the home was her brother, Martin Green, who had been away at college and returned without notice. We are looking for any tips regarding the capture of Mr. Green. If he is spotted, do not approach him, but alert the authorities immediately. He is armed and dangerous." "Bullshit," I said defiantly. "As I said, my name is Edgar. Edgar Watson." "Then what the fuck are you doing in this house, Edgar Watson?" I paused for a second, shifting uncomfortably in my seat. "My mother called me. She said she needed help." Her eyebrows shot up in surprise. "You fucking monster. Don't you talk to me about Mom," she said, her voice quivering with rage. "She called me this morning from this house. This house doesn't even have a working telephone line anymore. Only an analog for the security system. You tripped it. I live a few houses down the street." I don't know," I said meekly. "Did you not notice how everything in this house is covered in dust? No one has lived here for years, Martin." "My name isn't fucking Martin," I yelled angrily. "Now let me go. You're obviously insane." "Oh, you're the fucking insane one. The police are on their way now," she said, waving her remote in her hands. "I rang the panic alarm 5 minutes ago." "I hope you did call the fucking police." "I did," she said, sneering. "I waited because I wanted to get some answers out of you. But clearly, you've had some sort of psychotic break. I'm not talking to my brother." I paused for a second, and then it slowly dawned on me. "You're Marjorie?" Duh, I've been waiting here for years for this. Years. Ever since you killed Mom, I've been waiting for you to come back. I prepared for this moment, she said, gesturing towards the chair, bolted to the floor. But I couldn't stay here anymore, so I had a security system installed. There were suddenly loud noises from the upstairs now, lots of heavy feet. Police! Please show yourself, came a voice from upstairs. I'm down here, said Marjorie loudly. I left the front door open for them, she said, smiling. A few police officers came clambering down the stairs, guns pointed, and I was filled with relief. Officers, thank God you're here. This woman is holding me hostage. The officers looked confused as they looked both of us. Ma'am, what is going on here? I caught this man trying to break into my home, she said simply. They lowered their guns, one officer scratching his head. Ma'am, you can't just hold someone hostage for breaking into your home. She glared at them, run his fingerprints, and tell me I'm in the wrong. He scratched his head again. I'm not sure that's legal. Please do it, and you'll have every legal reason to put him behind bars, she whispered, barely keeping it together. Looking at the other officer, he shrugged and pulled out a mobile fingerprint scanner. Sir, do you consent to me fingerprinting you for identification purposes? You know what? If it'll prove her wrong, I said, fuck it. Go for it. Behind my back, I extended one index finger and he pressed the scanner against it. There was a satisfying beep and he pulled it away, reading the display. His eyes grew wide and he motioned at the other officer to come over. Sir, I don't believe we caught your name, he said quietly. My name is Edgar Watson, I said impatiently. Can you please untie me now? The officers looked at each other again. One drew his gun on me and the other one quickly approached me with handcuffs. Sir, I am placing you under arrest for the suspected murder of Meredith Green, as well as 14 other victims. What? I cried as the handcuffs were tightened around my wrists. I could feel the officer cutting through the belt, and it clattered to the ground. Under what grounds? Marjorie was crying in front of me. It's finally over, Mom, she said, looking upstairs. The officer lifted me out of the chair roughly. Fingerprints don't match your name, Edgar. Not at all. He showed me the screen on the reader, and there it was, clear as day. Martin Green, age 34, murder suspect in 15 outstanding cases. This didn't make any fucking sense. I was now being led upstairs where all the lights had been turned on, and I looked down to see the cat from earlier, his tail twitching. A tiny voice popped into my head. Midnight, said the voice, low and quiet. The cat is named Midnight. Midnight mewed as I walked by, and we were suddenly in the living room. I hadn't noticed it before, but everything was layered in thick dust. I looked down the hallway to my mom's room, and my heart reached my throat. There was blood, thick and red, coating the carpet. It's been fun, Edgar, whispered the voice, which was now growing in volume. We were nearing the door, and I could see lights flashing through the window. But it's time for me to take the stage again. You're hogging the limelight. We crossed the threshold, and I giggled, settling back into things. This had been fun, but Edgar is so boring, so pedantic. And these officers were just going to ruin our fun again. I was being led to the police cruiser I didn't want to go. Suddenly, I felt my old strength return. I broke through the handcuffs, my wrists bloody. I heard Marjorie scream from the porch, and I giggled as I ran, blood pounding in my ears, gunshots ringing around me. I had always been fast, always faster than Wimpy Edgar ever was. I disappeared in the dark, happy to be free once more. It had been such a lovely visit, but there was always so much to do. The end.
Oh. That was good. That was really good. Can I ask questions?
Go for it.
Is it split personality?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So essentially, serial killer, and every time he has to go back to his house to reset after every kill.
Oh. That makes sense, that earlier line. Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
No, that was it. I just wanted to make sure I got it. That was good though.
Thanks. Were you expecting the ending?
No.
Good.
No, I assumed it was some kind of like almost like a manipulation of the system or something, like almost like like a tech manipulation, just because of how smart you are with that stuff. So I that's what I was thinking.
Cool. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I did.
I expected a frame job.
That's
Oh.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's probably. I don't know how long it took for us to record that just now, but
About 15 minutes.
okay. Well, as long as it wasn't more than that, I suppose.
No,
All right,
it's
Jim.
Good on my end.
Well,
So I'm gonna tell a short story, just kind of like as a just something to lighten not lighten the mood, but just something that won't take too long. But I've got another one that's a little bit longer, but it shouldn't take very long to read. So hopefully I can get both of these in. But I'm going to read a story called Instant Messaging. It all started on the 14th night of March, the night of my parents' 20th wedding anniversary. It was a wonderful, sunny day, if memory serves. Surprisingly warm for being for before the beginning of spring. The beautiful weather was perfect for the atmosphere of the day. Being married for 20 years is obviously a momentous occasion, so my parents had booked a table at our favorite Italian restaurant. Of course, this was a formal occasion, so I had my best suit on. It was 5:33 and I was just straightening my tie when my phone went off. I'd received a message. That's strange, I thought. That never happens. I checked the message. It was from my mom. It was quite a jumble of numbers and letters, but through the vocabulary stew I could make out one legible phrase. Please help me. It should go without saying that this worried me greatly, so I immediately replied, "Are you okay?" Just as I instantly sent that, I got another text which read, "Oops, pocket text." I sighed with all the relief I had and continued to prepare myself. A few minutes later, I received yet another message, this time from my dad. I checked the text, and once again it was a massive mixture of letters and numbers, with the phrase, "Please help me," concealed within. Creepy though this was, my dad was always a joker, so I presumed this was just joking around, until I was sent another text saying, "Oops, pocket text." Now this sparked panic. Unmistakable panic. Exactly half a minute passed when I received the exact same two messages from my sister. This could not be coincidental. It just couldn't. In a state of sheer anxiety, I started to run to the restaurant. I made it about a quarter of the way before I was stopped by a police officer. "Main road's closed," he said. Huge car crash. This was the exact moment I realized just what had happened. I demanded to see the wreckage, a request which I was surprised was allowed. When I got there, it wasn't the remnants of the car that caught my eye, nor the flames billowing from the destroyed vehicle, no. I was horrified to see the lifeless corpses of my mother, father, and sister. I asked for the estimated time of their deaths. All three of them were killed instantly by the collision at 5:32, a minute before the very first text.
oops, pocket text.
Oops, pocket text. Yeah,
That's
this
good.
is my little ditty. My little ditty.
So you got the other one?
Yeah. Unless you want to go.
Oh, go for it, man.
Okay, cool. All right, this one is called 11 Miles. Do you have something that you truly, relentlessly desire, despite your state of life? Is there something else that you would go completely to the end of the world to get? Well, luckily for you, there's a way to achieve that. Achieve what you're looking for, and you won't need to go to the end of the world to get it. But you will need to go somewhere, and that place may be too out of reach for some. It's not far away, closer than one may believe, but there's requirements that some individuals may not meet. First, whatever it is that you seek, know that you must seriously desire what you want. In your eyes, it should be something you need. If you begin the journey without the correct state of mind, you will surely fail, as it will be near impossible to turn back once the journey starts. The second requirement is that you will need a vehicle of a sort. Most use a car as it's the most comfortable choice. There have been select few that have used small motorized vehicles, such as an ATV or a motorcycle, but this has proven to be quite difficult as the conditions of the journey can be proven to be bothersome. Do not use a vehicle too large or noticeable, as you will need some of the cover of night to be most safe. Also, while any sort of car will do, you may not want to choose the most expensive or cherished vehicle. You can take your slick new Mercedes Benz for the drive if you'd like, but don't expect it to come out in a pristine state. Make sure your vehicle is completely fueled before beginning the drive. The first task to accomplish is to locate the road. It doesn't have a name, it's not on a map, and technically, it doesn't even exist. It will only show up if you're looking for it at the right time, and you will only spot it if you know what to look for. Finally, you must be alone during the journey. You didn't think you'd be able to go with a group, did you? It must be night when you begin. Choose the time of night where you believe the roads are the least populated. Drive to any area that is just a stretch of road surrounded by woods. Here's where you want to start paying close attention. If you're looking for the road, it will turn up eventually. But you need to search for the road's hint in order to pull down the right one. Once you're close, you will see or feel its signs. What the signs will be will be dependent on what it is you desire. For example, if you're in search of wealth, you may spot shimmers on the empty branches of trees, as if they resembled the shine of gold or diamonds. If you seek love, you may begin to see rose petals slowly dance in the night breeze, blowing in the road's direction. If you seek revenge, you might sense an ever-growing feeling of heat or anger in your body as you approach. Just know what it is you really want, and you'll have no problem finding the turn. Once you're sure you've found the revealed road, take a deep breath and turn down onto it. At this point, you have officially started down the nameless road, which you bring through 11 miles, leading to whatever it is you seek. Each mile will test your drive and will expose if you really do want what you're searching for. Before you go any further, stop the car and be wary of a few advisements. Do not turn on a radio during the drive. Do not use a phone during the drive. Reception will be cut off anyways. Do not open the windows during the drive. Make sure they are closed before you continue. If you are riding a vehicle without windows or a top, then prepare for the worst, as the odds are heavily against you. Do not attempt to leave your vehicle at any time. You'll never want to exceed 30 miles per hour unless you're desperate to make it through a section of road. And most importantly, as with any drive, buckle up. Feel free to prepare and make sure you're ready. Once the road has been entered, time has stopped. So you don't need to worry about losing the night. So you may not notice you're not actually in your own world anymore. Take one last moment to realize that once the first mile is over, there is no turning back. If you ponder turning back at all, know that you shouldn't even be on the journey in the first place. Once all is done, start continuing on the road. On the first mile, you won't see much change. The road passes through mostly woods, with a few miles being an exception. The air will turn a bit colder, in which you should turn your heating system if the vehicle has one. You won't want to take your eyes off the road later. Take some time to calm any uneasiness by admiring some of the night sky. You'll see it completely lined with stars, more than what you would ever believe possible. If the weather was cloudy beforehand, you'll also notice that the sky is now clear. On the second mile, the air will become even colder. This is primarily the reason why traveling in an open vehicle is very difficult. With each mile, the air will drop in temperature. If the season should be warm. If the air is too cold to bear, even with the heat on, your only option is to speed up. With each mile, the road also becomes more complex, taking more turns and showing an increasing amount of road hazards. Be sure to always keep focused on the road in front of you in order to avoid as many bumps or obstacles as possible. Hitting a few rocks and potholes won't hamper your progress too much, but you'll want to keep in the best condition for as long as possible. If your vehicle is forced to a stop because of damage, then there's nothing left you can do but eventually freeze to death. On the third mile, you may begin to spot silhouettes of human figures in the linings of trees. Pay no attention to them, even if they seem to get closer. It will be hard to resist peeking at their unnerving, distant appearance, but know that they will reveal themselves later. At this mile, the road will become dirt. If you weren't driving on it in the beginning, keep to the center of the path as it will become narrow and wide at random intervals. On a quick side note, should you ever attempt to turn around, despite the previous warnings, you'll be left on a path which never ends. You would simply run out of fuel eventually and be left to freeze in the cold conditions. On the fourth mile, you will not only see more of the figures, but you will begin to in a sense, hear them. In the back of your mind, a very faint, unintelligible whisper will echo. These will come and go, but you can't stop them. If they become bothersome or distracting, try and tune them out by thinking what it is you desire. Attempting to listen and determine what the voices are saying will only attract them to you, and you want to be far away from them as you can. They'll be closer later, so there's no use bringing them near you this early. On the fifth mile, you will come to a clearing. The lining of the trees to your left will disappear to reveal a lake with no end with a beaming, great moon over the water. The illumination from the moon will be so spectacular that the vehicle's headlights will no longer be required. Restrain yourself from gazing at it. If you look at its light for even more than a few seconds, the road in front of you will end, throwing your vehicle into the water, which you will freeze in mere minutes. The voices will be gone for this mile, but don't rejoice yet. They'll be back. On the sixth mile, take into account that you are more than halfway done. Despite the progress, you may lose hope here. The stars will have disappeared at this point, leaving the sky an empty, black abyss. The clearing will have ended, leading you back into the woods. The only light you will have will be provided by your vehicle's headlights, but they will flicker from time to time. Even if you're unsure, they're in perfect working order. If you have a radio in the vehicle, it will turn on here automatically. If you didn't turn it off beforehand, it will produce an overwhelming screech that will send you off the path. A calm voice will then begin to speak about your greatest fears. What it is you horror in your life. That doesn't make any sense. It will speak in a way that will cause you to visualize the words in your mind. So don't listen to it. If you begin to comprehend what it's saying, the horrors will prove too much for you to stay on the road safely. Attempting to turn off the radio will prove no use. Speed up if you need to. Just keep your mind off the voices as much as you can. As you approach the end of the mile, the voice will fade out of the speakers, leaving your ears at peace. For now. On the seventh mile, the voices from the figures will return. It won't sound like a whisper this time, but more like distant screams, growing closer with each second. At some point on this mile, you'll hear one of them in your ear, as if one of them were right behind you. This is because one of the figures have found their way into your vehicle. Do not turn around. Their faces will shock you to a paralysis, leading you off the road. If you don't draw attention to it, it will become uninterested, and hopefully leave. These beings are said to be ones who traveled down this road before, but were not successful. They live the remainder of their existence suffering in the darkness, with their only goal being to bring other travelers down with them. It has been said from experience that these beings can't physically harm you, so as long as they don't cause you to wreck, you should be fine. On the 8th mile, slow down if you're going too fast. The road here takes very sharp turns, which, if overshot, will lead you to throw the vehicle into a pit through the trees. The cold is near fatal here. If you were to have a glass or a bottle of liquid in your vehicle, it would be solid in seconds. The heating system will have become completely obsolete. Your headlights will flicker more, sometimes shutting off for a few seconds. You should brake if this happens, but do not completely stop. The figures will be following you at this point, and you should stop. And should you stop for too long, they will surround and trap your vehicle. More of their screams can be heard from outside your doors. sometimes even sounding of maniacal laughter. Their hands will claw at your windows, desperate to reach in and feel something living. Do not look at them. They won't block your windshield, and the last thing you want to happen is to crash and be trapped with them. If you don't make it from here, pray that it's the freezing that ends you. On the 9th mile, your vehicle will stall. The headlights will shut off as well as will all other systems inside. There's nothing you can do to prevent this. What you will need to do is close your eyes and immediately attempt to restart the vehicle. Keep your eyes closed, as the figures would have surely surrounded you at this point. The starting of the vehicle will frighten them, and they will all back away temporarily. This will give you a chance to start moving forward again. If you begin to hear the windows crack from their struggle, don't lose focus. The beings can alter the vehicle, but remember that they still do not have the strength to physically affect you. You will hear nothing but their voices rampage in your mind, as there could be anywhere between a dozen or 100 after you now. Once you start the vehicle, floor it. Floor it so long as you can stay on the path. When the mile's done, the beings will retreat. On the 10th mile, the voices of the beings will stop. If you were to look in your rearview mirror, do not actually do this. You will see them following you, but not as if they were chasing. They're watching you, as if they were seeing you off as you go down the 10th mile. The road will be smoother, as if you were back on the 1st mile. The figures will be lining the sides of the path ahead of you. They won't be after you, but they will watch as you pass. Some have theorized that these beings are impressed here, that you have come a long way on the journey to what you desire. This is false. They are not impressed, but they are happy. They are happy you are approaching the next mile. They are happy because you are most likely going to your death. On the 11th and final mile, everything in your vehicle will lose power, as it did in the 9th mile. The vehicle would normally be immobile, but you will still be moving. An unknown force will be pulling you forward into the darkness. You will see a glowing red light up ahead, as if it were a light at the end of a tunnel. Close your eyes and cover them. Do whatever it takes to make sure you do not see what you are going through. Covering your ears would also be helpful, but keeping your eyes covered should be a higher priority. The red light is another clearing, but there's no moon or lake this time. Once it's entered, unrelenting and unconceivable noises will sound from all directions. No amount of bravery and conditioning will spare you from these sounds. The cold will turn to a merciless heat, burning all parts of the vehicle. You will feel the illusion of the flesh being burned off your bones, that every part of you is being destroyed as you travel through the screams and audible suffering. As long as you keep your eyes closed and resist the urge to see where you are, you will survive through the suffering. This will last a total of 31 seconds, but many fail to keep their vision closed during that time and are left to the worst fate of the road. Where is this mile located? Those who have survived do not know. Some have named it the transmission from hell, but whether it's part of hell is debatable. And the final mile, power will return. After the final mile, power will return. Stop the vehicle. Take a moment to possibly regain some of your sanity. Let the screaming in your ears begin to fade, and know that you have nearly completed your journey with the hardest task to overcome. Breathe and begin to drive forward once again. After only a kilometer, your vehicle, not American, will arrive at a dead end. Stop here and don't attempt to move again. Nothing will happen right at this second, but do not be disappointed. Relax and close your eyes. Imagine in your mind what it is you desired the entire time. It will most likely still be the same as when you entered, but with some, this desire may actually change through making this journey. Think about what it was that you went through, why you went through such terrifying and difficult means to acquire, and imagine possessing it in your hands. Once you have completely visualized this, slowly open your eyes. You will then find yourself at the beginning of an unnamed road where you first began. This may confuse you, but know that you are finished. Your task is done. Your mind will then turn to your reward. If what you desired was material, check in the back seat or in the trunk if the object is larger. If the object was small enough, it might already be in your pocket. If what you desired was non-material, then do not be disappointed if the change is not immediate. Turn back to where you came from, and you will find in your life what you want is there. You may have found the love of your dreams. You may have gained a natural, unimaginable power. You may have put your most hated enemy to the most satisfying revenge possible. You will no doubt have gained what you deserved. So now that the task is done, what's the catch? Is your vehicle cursed? Is there something you're about to lose? Is your death imminent? The answer to all is no, of course. You've done the challenge. You've proved worthy of what you desire. As stated before, the sounds of 11th Mile will continue to exist in your mind, potentially causing you some vivid and unusual nightmares, but these should prove to be as nothing compared to what you've gained. Now, one last question. Is there something else you desire? Are you not yet satisfied? After all, you're left right back where you started. The road's right in front of you. Are you up for another drive? If so, buckle up and just move forward. The end.
No, thank you.
That's
no.
a good one.
Hell no. There are too many rules in that. I would forget all of it. Do I have a piece of paper that
You can't look
reminds me of the
away.
rule?
You have to look straight.
Yeah, which means I'm gonna die. I don't want anything to do with this. It's like some Squid Game shit.
Yeah.
I don't appreciate it.
So I'm glad you said Squid Games, Todd. Because our next story is going overseas.
Oh.
I live in Osaka, Japan, and often use the subway to go to work in the morning. One day, when I was waiting for the train, I noticed a homeless man standing in a corner of the subway station, muttering to himself as people passed by. He was holding out a cup and seemed to be begging for spare change. A fat woman passed by the homeless man, and I distinctly heard him say, "Pig." Wow, I thought to myself, this homeless man is insulting people, and he still expects to give him money? Then a tall businessman went by, and the homeless guy muttered, "Human." Human? I can't argue with that. Obviously, he was human. Next day, I arrived early at the subway station and had some time to kill, so I decided to stand close to the homeless man and listen to his strange mutterings. Then, haggard-looking man passed in front of him, and I heard the homeless man mutter, "Cow." Cow, I thought. Man was much too skinny to be a cow. He looked more like a turkey or a chicken to me. A minute or so later, a fat man went by, and the homeless man said, "Potato." Potato? I was under the impression that he called all fat people pig. That day at work, I couldn't stop thinking about the homeless man and his puzzling behavior. I kept trying to find some logic or pattern in what he was muttering. Perhaps he had some sort of psychic ability, I thought. Maybe he knows what these people were in a previous life. In Japan, many people believe in reincarnation. I observed the homeless man many times and began to think my theory was right. I often heard him calling people things like rabbit, or onion, or sheep, or tomato. One day, curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to ask him what was going on. As I walked up to him, he looked at me and said, "Bread." I tossed some money into his cup and asked him if he had some sort of psychic ability. The homeless man smiled and said, "Yes, indeed, I do have a psychic ability. It is an ability I obtained many years ago. But it is not what you might expect. I can't tell the future or read minds or anything like that." "Then what is your ability?" I asked eagerly. "The ability to merely know the last thing something ate," he said. I laughed because I realized he was right. He had said bread. The last thing I had eaten for breakfast that day was toast. I walked away shaking my head. Of all the psychic abilities someone could have, that one must be the most useless. The end.
That was it?
You didn't catch it what I said earlier in the story, did you?
I guess not, no, but Alyssa got home.
So one of the things that the guy muttered was human.
Yeah, he was talking about cannibal.
Oh, shit.
Dun dun dun!
I didn't get it for the first
I didn't get it either.
minute afterwards. I'm like, he just ate bread. Oh, I ate toast this morning. Oh, and
Yeah.
I was like, all right, that's cool. That's funny.
The potato.
There's another one that's very similar to this. It's very, very short, and I'll say it. It's kind of got similar twist. It's 5 minutes to midnight, and I'm on an express train in the outskirts of Tokyo. I don't know what it is with Japan. It's just me and a few people when this guy gets on. When he does, he looks around the cabin and a terrified expression crosses his face as he closes the door. He walks up to a lady. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you 28? "That's right," she replies. "How could you tell?" He ignores her question and continues to the next man. "And you're 45? "Why, yes, that's exactly right." He looks at me and says, "You're 35. "That's correct, but how did you know? And you, miss, you're 50? "Yes, that's right, but I'll be 51 tomorrow. Well, 5 minutes from now." When she says this, the man goes white as a sheet. I have a special power. I can see to what age a person will live. Dun 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 dun
Dun,
dun.
dun, 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 dun.
All right. So, I believe we've gotten some stories out of the way.
Yes.
Jim, do you feel up to telling your spooky story?
Yeah, sure. So mine does require a visual element. So if you have the ability to, Todd, this is going to be on YouTube, correct?
Yes, I had
Yeah.
to unmute myself. Sorry.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so this one, like I said, really does require a visual element, just because to really get the feel of it, you got to see the picture that I took back in 2013. So in 2013, my wife and I, right after we moved in together, we went on a Galveston Ghost City tour. And one of the places that we went to, because if you didn't know, Galveston is like super haunted. The the tropical storm of 1900 killed like 6,000 people. And I'm being informed I actually did not take the picture. My wife took the picture, which weird that it's on my phone. So, but it basically is a picture I took in the front of Moody Mansion. So a little bit of backstory. Moody Mansion was built in 1895 for a woman named Narcissa Willis. The Moody Mansion was first the Willis Mansion. Narcissa had actually wanted the house much sooner than it was ever able to be built. I think she wanted it done like in the early 1890s, but it took a while to build it. So she was a Galveston socialite. She always wanted a sizable, stately home to impress her ever-growing social sphere. Her husband, Richard, controlled the purse strings, apparently, though. Richard had been a prosperous cotton broker who could afford the mansion. Unlike Narcissa, Richard preferred to keep his assets liquid. Cash was easier to inherit than property, especially whenever you were dividing it amongst 10 children, which they had. Regrettably, the Willis children would never receive their inheritance. Richard died in 1892, and Narcissa funneled his fortune into the then Willis Mansion against her late husband's wishes. Narcissa commissioned the home within a year of his death. For this, Narcissa was estranged from her family. Her children never even visited the home. She thought that the extravagance of the estate would encourage her children to bury the hatchet. Avoided, abhorred, and alienated from her offspring, Narcissa remained in the Moody Mansion. Outside of the housekeeper, Narcissa was the estate's only occupant. And this place is huge. Narcissa's sad isolation was at least short-lived, as she died in 1899, and her daughter Beatrice put the Moody Mansion up for sale. Now, when you take a look at the pictures that I have, the first image that you'll see is of the front of the home. The second image is in the same position, pretty much, but there's something extra in the window that was not there before. Then the third image is something I zoomed in on it, and there's the exact same presence or something there that a lot of people have claimed to see in the past. While there have been no specific hauntings, like no specific on-record haunting, guests have overheard disembodied voices alongside unidentified footsteps. Perhaps she still considers the Moody Mansion her own. Narcissa, that is. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's Narcissa.
I think it's Narcissa.
Narcissa. The most common phenomenon appears within photographs. Pictures that are taken at the site often reveal unaccountable guests. These guests are blurred or otherwise indistinct, leading some to believe that they are apparitions of a wispy widow. Spirit photography is particularly popular at the Moody Mansion. Visitors have even sworn to see faces appear in their pictures. Are these, so I don't know if that's what is in that photo that Alyssa took. I don't know if that is, I don't know what it is, but it's definitely creepy, and it definitely made Alyssa and I both feel uneasy, nearly a decade ago when we did this ghost tour. But again, I highly suggest take a few minutes. Maybe we can put them on our Facebook page. But yeah, take a look at these photos and see for yourself. It's pretty creepy.
So
I'm trying to figure out what I think is the person, and I think I know what it is.
I was actually going to say, can you send me that photo?
I'll send them. Or Jim, send those while I'm showing this stream. I think this is what you would consider a silhouette of a person. Maybe. I don't fucking know.
A what now?
So you're saying what am I trying to see in this third picture?
I am not like a believer in ghosts. I don't think I am, at least. Okay. I've definitely seen some weird shit in my life. Trust me, I believe it was either last year or maybe one of the Spooky Scary Skeletons. I talked about my experience at Jefferson Davis Hospital. That's like that's the thing that I think about when I start thinking like ghosts don't exist, or all this stuff, is that I saw some weird fucking shit in that building that I will never be able to explain. So I don't know. I truly don't know what it is, but it's very eerie. I'm gonna send them to you in order, Jeff.
Yeah, because I'm just kind of curious to see.
I see something that might be construed as a silhouette of a person. Maybe.
It's definitely eerie.
And are you talking about on like the second floor?
Yeah.
It's in the second floor.
Look on. I don't see it in the first picture.
No.
I don't see it at all. But if you look at the second and the third, and you look in like
the right
behind
the bars,
behind the bars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I don't want to believe it because those are spooky.
Yes.
But I definitely see something that I would construe as a person.
It's what really freaks me out about the picture is that like you can tell that there's something flowy. There's something definitely flowy. But when you get up to the top of the head, it almost like fades away.
Yeah. That's one of the things, like there's I don't even know if I recall if I told this on the, did I tell the story about the boy in white that I saw in the woods when I was a kid?
I don't.
Oh, wait a minute.
Story.
You either have told we've told it to us, or you've told it to us on a Spooky Scary Skeletons.
I tune out Spooky Scary Skeletons.
That one was it was a little strange. It was when I was playing with some friends from the neighborhood, and we were just kind of like, we just go in the woods all the time. There was a boy who was dressed in all white, and he was off in the distance, and I kept pointing to him, and I said, well, who's that? He must be a new kid in the neighborhood or something. And by the time we got over to the air, because he kind of like disappeared behind some trees, by the time we got near the location, there was no one there. And it didn't look like anything had been disturbed, and we were, we're just kind of like looking for footprints or something. Nothing was ever found. Like, we never saw that kid. No one recognized him. And the only creepy part about that neighborhood was, and I know I've told this before, but there's basically there was a graveyard across the street. And
was this in Michigan or Indiana?
Indiana, yeah.
Okay.
There's a graveyard across the street, family graveyard, and a guy would have to stand at the entrance of the graveyard on Halloween, and he would always prevent kids from going in there. And he, at the time, you're like, oh, it's because he's trying to scare you or whatever. It's like, no, the dude's just trying to prevent you from like fucking with gravestones on like his family's gravestones on Halloween. Kids are little shits. But like back in the day, someone was like, oh yeah, no, that's, spirits rise in the graveyard and blah, blah, blah. And it's one of those things where like, it's hard for me to refute things
that
I can't explain.
No, that's how I felt about the Jefferson Davis stuff. That's how I feel about another. There was another situation which I'll tell in a second that was like that was too fucking weird.
Oh, go for it.
Well, so again, I hate being that person that like talks about geography, like everyone's gonna know where I'm talking about. But there is a street that used to be on if you were driving east on it. It was the street that went behind Williamsburg settlement.
Oh, so right next to me.
I think it's kind of, but not really. But it does connect to your area. And now on the right hand side, there's a ton of like businesses and stuff like that, and big office buildings and office parks. But it used to be nothing. It used to be absolutely nothing. And I was driving to do an overnight at work, and it was dark already. And so I was driving, and there was it may have been fog from a like a storm drain, but there was definitely what looked like a solid mass, like on the side of the road, like on the not in the street, but on like the grass part.
Yeah.
And as I got closer to it, it really did. I thought it was a person. I thought it was a person that was just standing there. I don't know doing what, but just standing there. And then right as I like was driving through it, it like stepped off the median into the street, and like right in front of my car. And I, for like a split second, like how like you flinch, like if something you see like that kind of starts coming at you,
right? And
then I look back, and it's just nothing there. And so I just maybe assumed it was fog or something, but man, it looked like a person, like that just like was either trying to like commit suicide or step out in front of a out in front of a car. I don't know. Sorry if you can hear my dog drinking.
He's a thirsty boy.
Yeah, well, he just got home, so that's why.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where like it sounds odd because like I've lived in this house now for I don't know how many years, but like my grandma like passed away in this house.
Oh, okay.
So it's one of those things where like you wonder kind of like, oh, is she still like around in some form or fashion? And she was pretty like deeply religious, so like I know like if there was a place for her, right, like she most likely would have gone there instead of staying behind.
Mm-hmm.
So, but every once in a while you think like, oh, that presence kind of lingers a little bit. And, I'm just a little paranoid about places where, people have passed away. And, I realize like death happens every day and that kind of stuff. But, I don't know, like I like doing ghost tours and stuff. There's one at the Renaissance Festival that's actually is really neat.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's an after hours Renaissance Festival tour, and he'll tell you about like all the people that have been, scattered at the festival, because like that's a huge thing. They'll literally just take the ashes after hours and scatter them across the festival if they've been at the festival for years.
If you've never done a Galveston one, that's the one I recommend. Galveston is a weird fucking history.
Yeah, I might do that. Or Spring apparently has a pretty good ghost tour too.
Oh, there is the Houston Satanic Temple is in Spring.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just one of those things where like I'm deeply paranoid about like going into the woods at night.
Oh, dude.
And I've written like several stories about going into the fucking woods at night, so that kind of tells you like my paranoia kind of feeds into my stories sometimes. But just like weird shit happens in the woods, man. Like in the middle of the woods.
I've this is gonna make me sound like just a giant pussy, but like I remember we went to a couple of years ago. We went to Fredericksburg just like for an anniversary trip.
Yeah.
And Fredericksburg is a small Texas town. Kind of, surrounded by wooded areas and stuff like that. That wasn't the problem though. Even more isolated was where our Airbnb was, which was on a farm in a town called Comfort, Texas.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
oh my god, like, so, it's beautiful. The farm we stayed at, like, had 2 bull mastiff giant dogs, like super friendly dogs. But when it was night, Alyssa was like, "Hey, let's sit outside and look at the stars." And like, I walked out and I felt so damn uneasy, and just like paranoid, like real paranoia that like something was wrong. And I couldn't stay out there. I literally had to go inside. I could not stay out there. And then also it didn't help that like we were told that they were the owners of the property were going to be out of town. But then their son ended up showing up to like take care of something on the farm. But it was like 11 o'clock at night, and then we saw like a person and then heard something, and Alyssa finally came inside because we were both freaked out. But next morning they were like, "Yeah, if you saw me out there, I apologize. I was taking care of some stuff. We assumed he was burying a dead body. We don't know." But if you're gonna do it and get away with it,
that's
it's
really
gonna be
funny.
in Comfort, Texas.
It's really funny because Julia was convinced she has like a route that she walks on now every night. It goes around our lake in the neighborhood, and she's like, she kind of like peeks through like fences every once in a while if she can, as she's walking by. She's not actively like reaching over a fence and looking at people's backyards, but like you can see through fence slats as you're walking sometimes. And she was like, "Hey, I think," and she's being semi-serious, of course. She's not like 100% convinced, but she's like, there's something kind of weird about this one backyard. It looks like there's something really lumpy under a tarp. It looks like it's like freshly like moved earth under a tarp. And I was like, well, that's kind of sus. So we're walking one day, and oh yeah, it's this house. And so I looked through it in the backyard, just kind of casually look at it. It was a fucking table underneath the tarp. And I was just like,
that's so funny.
Kind of like chiding her. I was like, Julia, you can't say shit like that. Like, but like you don't really know, like the your neighbors are complete, like you don't truly know anyone.
Sure.
Like, whenever someone's like, oh, I can't believe that this person would do something. Like, I hate to say it, but unless you live with them, like you don't know anything about the people that live next to you.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like, I'm thoroughly convinced we have pot growers next to us, which is funny because they're like the most conservative, like non-hippie people I've ever met.
I'm convinced old hippies are now like Trump supporting Republicans. So
it's just,
I don't know what happened.
It's just
it's
weird.
Very strange.
So, all right. So that's cool. Let's move on to some murder, because I feel like we've reached that point in our podcast where we can just abruptly switch.
Talk about murder. Okay.
From ghost to murder. So, and I'm gonna probably have mispronounced this name. I apologize. I guess. I don't know if I really am apologizing, but
I couldn't say Narcissa, so there you go.
Well, there you are. We're not a podcast of accurate, descriptive things. So sorry if I butcher things. Haha, butcher. This is a murder case regarding the Coons family of Wisconsin. On July 4th, 1987, in the city of Athens, Wisconsin, the fireworks had died, and thus the 1,000 or so residents of the town returned back home to their beds. However, all was not calm and peaceful in the ramshackle farmhouse where the Coons family lives. I'm trying to debate if it's
saying it like that.
Coons or Coons. I can't. We'll just say the K family. That works.
Yeah. Either way, it sounds either racist or sexist.
What?
It's racist.
It's both. Someone decided to creep into their house and shoot nearly the entire family with a .22 caliber rifle. Clarence, Irene, Marie, and Randy were all dead. Clarence, Irene, and Marie are brother and sisters, and Randy is the son of what's her name? Helen. So basically in this house there was Helen, Irene, Marie, and Clarence. They're all brother and sisters. And then Randy is the adult son of Helen. Okay? They are discovered by Kenneth K., Randy's brother, who's also the other son of Helen. Kenny soon discovered that something else was amiss, though. Once he had discovered all of the bodies, his mother, Helen, was also gone from the house. This house is pretty much like a frontier house. There's no running water. There's a single wood-burning stove being the only source of heat in Wisconsin. They were also hoarders. They had trash just piled up in corners, and the house was starting to rot. However, even though they seemed to live like they were on the frontier, they had their priorities straight. Todd, you will appreciate this. They had a TV and a VCR, mostly for watching porn.
Hell yeah.
Of which there was copious amounts found everywhere. There was magazines, videos, everything you can imagine. Allegedly, the family watched porn movies together as a comment.
What are you doing, step bro?
As a comment made by Helen a few weeks prior to the murders was essentially that she was pissed at her family for watching dirty movies in the VCR.
Backdoor Sluts 9.
It gets even better. They were apparently a very intimate family.
Oh no.
As Helen would sleep in the same bed as her adult son Randy, and Clarence, Marie, and Irene all slept in the same room. Now, this isn't so strange. It sounds like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, okay? But rumors surrounding Kenny's parentage, which is her second son, suggest that they were sexually intimate. Helen became pregnant with Kenny in 1933. Very, very, there's an age gap. And apparently Helen and Clarence were quite close to each other. So, now, back to the murders. With Helen missing, authorities were suspicious of her and another suspect, Chris Jacobs III. Jacobs was a small-time criminal who would buy and sell old cars from the K family, because I can't say that word correctly. However, at the time, there was no concrete evidence to connect him, even though he had recently sold them an old car that had tire tracks at the house the night before the murders took place. Because Helen was also missing, she had happened to purchase some ammo not more than a few weeks back, which just happened to be .22 caliber ammo. She had bought it to basically shoot at some blackbirds that had recently inhabited the property and were annoying her. However, there was a problem with her being a murder suspect. She was discovered 9 months later, her remains near a creek in Medford, Wisconsin. Bullet in her brain. No one else is certain how she got there. Even though the family lived in squalor, they were by no means poor. In the house, authorities found $20,000 in cash scattered and stuffed into random crevices in the house. This is apparently how they paid for everything. So what exactly happened? If it wasn't Helen, was it Kenny? Authorities ruled that no, he had such a low IQ and his temperament did not lead to or suggest violence, so he too was cleared. While Jacobs was cleared in 1989, in 1993, he was charged again right before the statute of limitations expired. So in the original trial, they said, hey, we suspect that you murdered all these people. They acquitted him from that. Mm-hmm. And so basically he could not be tried again because of double jeopardy.
Oh, I saw that movie.
For that specific thing, right?
Right.
So while he tried to fight this under the grounds of double jeopardy, his second trial started in 1998. These charges were based on the word of his former girlfriend, Stacy Weiss, who said in June of 1993, that Jacobs had confessed to her 2 years prior that he had committed the murders.
But he was not sent to jail for the murders.
Correct. So, but because of the double jeopardy rule, he cannot be tried for those murders now. Now, the reason why she is now all of a sudden come forward is because Stacy Weiss was involved in a bank robbery. And she said, well, I've got this dirt on my former boyfriend. I'm going to use that. And we're going to say, hey, I would like to be removed from the bank robbery charges because I'm confessing to this far greater issue. According to Weiss's interview with Marathon County Sheriff's Lieutenant Randall, I'm going to say H because I'm not pronouncing that. She and Jacobs were driving back from their pool league at a bar in Stratford when he asked her how she would react if he had told her he had actually committed the murders. Jacobs told Weiss he had killed the K family to prove himself he was a man. On the night of the murders, according to the testimony, Randy K let Jacobs into his house because he knew Jacobs from selling him a car. The two men got into an argument, and Jacobs shot Randy and then the rest of the family members before tying up Helen and driving her to the swamp where her body was found, according to the interview. The night Jacobs confessed to Weiss, he instructed her to drive to the K house and pull the car into the garden next to the house. He then had her drive to the spot where he had killed Helen and left her body, she said. Jacobs also told Weiss he had confessed to Nelson, his defense attorney, that he had committed the murders. Nelson wrote down what Jacobs told him, made Jacobs sign it, and put it in an envelope, Weiss told the police. Long story short, the jury found him guilty and sentenced him to 31 years in prison on the grounds of kidnapping. He was released in February of 2020 and was placed back in jail the same day due to a rule violation.
Oh my God.
He is currently on supervised release, aka probation, until 2029. Still denies killing the family.
Funny, but not funny story. I found an article about this guy. He was offered parole in when was he offered parole? And he denied it. Let's see. Chris Jacobs of Athens was released on parole February 4th, but booked back in for a rule violation, according to that. Marathon County Sheriff made it clear he was not interested in paroles, refused to sign or acknowledge the rules, didn't want to meet with the probation officer, and wished to serve out the rest of his sentence in prison. So that was his rules violation, not signing the rules.
Wow.
He made it clear.
That's what I was gonna ask. Like, do we know what it was?
He wants to stay in prison. Jacobs has a good rapport with the jail corporals and did not cause any problems.
So he's 53 now, and if you think about it, this is all he's ever done. Yeah. So like, where is he going to go after this?
3 weeks before Jacobs was set to be free on parole, he wrote a letter to the court asking if he could stay in prison. But yeah, these pictures, he's a young kid.
Yeah.
And like, this is 88.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean,
well, and it just goes to show you just like how long the justice system takes, because his second trial was in 98. So in 93 was when his girlfriend like came forward and was like, hey, this is a fucking problem. And like, that's how long it fucking took for all of this to happen. So it's nuts. Like, yes, the family, listen, just throw this out here. The family will do whatever the family wants to do, as long as they aren't hurting other people, whatever. You can be like, oh, their house is dirty and they're fucking incest and blah, blah. It's like, again, as long as they're not hurting anyone, it shouldn't be a big deal to people.
You notice the coincidence of incest and one of the people had an extremely low IQ?
Yep.
Wonder what happened there.
Yeah. So that's something I was talking to Julie about earlier, actually.
Friggin' Lenny from Of Mice and Men.
Yep. So I just, it was an interesting murder situation. I've got a serial killer after this, but I would like Jim to go forward with his first.
Well, I've only got one, but
that's fine.
It's definitely interesting.
Is it the Showstopper one?
No, it's the Zodiac Killer.
Oh.
A story that we're all familiar with, but I kind of wanted to go through.
Yeah, Ted Cruz.
It's Ted Cruz, yeah. Yeah, Ted Cruz. No, it's just to kind of go over what the Zodiac Killer did. We've all heard that name. Maybe we saw the movie, but what exactly the Zodiac Killer did, and what we've learned, or what we think we might have learned just in the last few weeks, in 2021, when this all happened in the late 60s and early 70s. So in the late 60s, early 70s, the Zodiac Killer terrorized Northern California. killing at least 5 people and claiming to have killed 37 people in total. Not in a row.
I get it. I get what you did there.
So the first killings occurred on December 20th, 1968 in Vallejo, California. The 2 teen victims were shot and killed while sitting, quote unquote, sitting in a parked car in a gravel parking area called Lookout Point. I don't know. But yeah, those were the first 2 individuals. The next crime occurred on July 4th, 1969, only a few minutes away from the first killings. The killer approached a parked car with a flashlight and shot the 2 passengers before walking away and coming back to shoot them again. One of the victims, Michael Magoo, survived and was able to give a description of the killer. And the description was, young white male, 26 to 30 years old, stocky, like 200 pounds or larger, about 5'8", light brown curly hair, and a large face. Don't know what a large face is, but a few weeks later, the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald all received identical handwritten letters from someone claiming to be the killer. The letters included 3 different codes that the Zodiac claimed would reveal his identity. And if you've probably seen these letters, it's just a bunch of gobbledygook nonsense. It almost looks like, like Greek, kind of mixed with like Russian, and mixed with like other symbols. A couple days later, the San Francisco Examiner received another letter in which the killer referred to himself as the Zodiac for the first time, writing, "This is the Zodiac speaking." On September 27th, 1969, in Napa, California, a picnicking couple was stabbed by a man in an executioner-style hood with the Zodiac symbol on his chest. But one of the victims, Brian Hartnell, survived. He was able to give a description of the killer. 5'8", heavy-set, dark brown hair. Finally, on October 11th, 1969, in San Francisco, taxi driver Paul Stein was shot in the head by his passenger. A teenager across the street heard the shot and got a good look at the perpetrator, and so did 2 other witnesses. In the chaos of the situation, the police dispatcher somehow incorrectly identified the suspect as a black male, even though he was described differently. And the neighbor's description was white male, 25 to 30, 5'8", stocky, reddish-brown crew cut, and heavy-rimmed glasses. And no, this is not me. When 2 police officers, Donald Folk and Eric Zelms, drove past a stocky white male with heavy-rimmed glasses a few blocks away from the scene, they did not question him, since he didn't fit the dispatcher's racist description of a black male. The Zodiac... I know, right? The Zodiac would later mock this interaction in a letter, making it likely that the two cops drove by the nation's most notorious serial killer at the time without even knowing. And it literally says, P.S. 2 cops pulled a goof about 3 minutes after I left the cab. It says that in the letter. That's verbatim what it says. Pulled a goof. Hold on 1 second.
So the Zodiac Killer has always been interesting.
Yeah.
Especially the clue-based aspect. You've watched the movie, I'm sure, right?
Man, when it came out years ago.
If you have any, like Todd, you actually may enjoy it too.
No, that ain't gonna happen.
It's not as creepy as you might think it is. It's got a bunch of really cool. It's got Tony Stark, and it's got the Hulk.
Which Hulk?
The Mark Ruffalo Hulk.
Yeah.
The Buffalo Ruffalos.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sorry, Jim.
So
keep continuing. It's just a really good film.
But it's like a crime thriller.
No.
Yeah.
So it's worth watching. But I'm almost done. So a composite sketch was drawn based on descriptions by the 2 witnesses at the Paul Stein killing. It has become the most famous image of the Zodiac. You have probably seen this image at some point in your life. If not, just again, picture Ted Cruz, but young.
Dun dun dun.
On April 20th, 1970, a letter to the San Francisco Chronicle included a coded message of the Zodiac's name. He literally says, "My name is," and then gives just a gobbledygook answer. The Zodiac continued sending letters, but then stopped in 1971. But in 1974, he sent one last letter in which he claimed to have killed 37 people. Literally, the letter just says, "Me, 37, San Francisco Police Department, 0." In 2002, the San Francisco Police Department was able to extract a partial genetic profile from a Zodiac letter from the saliva on the stamp. It wasn't enough to conclusively identify a single person, but was enough to eliminate some suspects. And there were some suspects. I won't go into detail, but there were a few people. And if you look at what they look like, Earl Van Best Jr. was one of them. Looks identical to the photo that was the famous picture, the composite sketch artist. But he's not heavy set, and he didn't have a big face. So unfortunately, and then that 2002 DNA match, proved that it wasn't him. Then there was a guy named Robert Graysmith, who was a PD who believed that a man by the name of Arthur Lee Allen was the Zodiac killer. The theory is the basis for the 2007 film, The Zodiac Killer, which has Jake Gyllenhaal in it. So if you know that movie, that's what it is. So that's kind of where we are. And then there's a couple of other names that were thrown out there, but these were proven to be not a match. However, in October of 2021, which is the very month that we're in, an independent group claims that it has solved the mystery behind the identity of the Zodiac killer. And then right now, law enforcement is currently investigating. I definitely recommend, I won't go into full detail, but I definitely recommend looking it up. But law enforcement agencies said they are still investigating the Zodiac killer case, as an independent group of cold case investigators came forward Wednesday to claim they had solved the mystery. The Case Breakers, which is the name of the group, a team of 40 former law enforcement investigators, said they identified the man they believe is the Zodiac killer using new physical and forensic evidence and information from eyewitnesses, according to a press release. The group also filed court affidavits and secured decades of pictures from the man's former darkroom. Casebreaker said they named the man in the release, saying they believe he passed away in 2018. So sadly, if this is the case, he will never see any kind of justice. The Zodiac,
cool name though.
The Case Breakers, yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, literally, we're at the point where we might have solved the Zodiac killings. Obviously, we're recording this on October 22nd, 2021. Maybe tomorrow, maybe in the next week or so, they say it's legit or not. But yeah, freaking crazy that 51 years later we might have solved it. Kind of like what and I feel awful not knowing her name, but knowing Patton Oswalt names. But Patton Oswalt's late wife, helping figure out the Golden State, bridge killer.
Michelle McNamara.
Michelle, yeah, awful that I couldn't remember that. I am so sorry, but yeah, fucking crazy.
So it's interesting because not long ago, there is it's basically a cipher. It's called the 340 cipher. It's because basically the Zodiac killer would frequently write to the San Francisco Chronicle.
Mm-hmm.
And 51 years after it was sent to the Chronicle, someone may have finally cracked it. Or rather, I think they did crack it. It was a web designer named David Orenchuk. And basically at the very top it says, "This is the Zodiac speaking, by the way. Have you cracked the last cipher I sent you? My name is..." And it has the cipher.
Yep.
340 characters long. And basically he ran it through, I don't know how many times, how many different ciphers. He basically wrote a computer program to try and solve it. He's been trying to do it since 2006, and when he finally cracked it, it reads, "I hope you're having lots of fun and trying to catch me. That wasn't me on the TV show," which brings up a point about me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner, because I now have enough slaves to work for me wherever everyone else has had nothing when they reach paradise, so they are afraid of death. I am not afraid because I know that my new life is life will be an easy one in paradise. Death. Which doesn't really make that much sense, but
No, but
this guy
those
is
people who talk like that, though, do they ever make that much sense?
That's correct.
Oh, but also, I don't know if you saw it, but the name of the person they think is the Zodiac killer has the most serial killer name you've ever heard. It's Gary
Right.
Francis Post.
Yep.
What the fuck?
That's the most serial killer name you could possibly think of.
So it's important to note that even though there's all this evidence, the law enforcement has already said, like, guys, this is circumstantial evidence, mainly because they're trying to
not slander a dead person's name without solid evidence.
There is that, but I also think it's more pride than anything else.
They don't want to be wrong.
Well, they don't want to be wrong, and or they don't want to be the ones that said, "Oh, we're the ones that caught him." No, it's these quote unquote not
100%.
professional people.
Well,
Also,
that's
on top of it. His last name is Post with an E.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Post with an E, not even the
Murderer.
room. No, so and that's the thing about police officers, like in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Like, the reason why serial killers got away with it so often is because of pride of these police officers. They would never, like, certain precincts would not communicate with other precincts because they wanted to be the one to catch them. When literally, if they probably got together with their evidence versus the other precinct's evidence, they probably could have solved most of these murders.
Well, yeah, and a lot of, and that's the thing with a lot of these, like, cold cases now. What's happened is that they're finally starting to tap into the resources that these police stations had, and starting to compile
exactly
the information and the DNA and the circumstantial, like, it's starting to basically, which is crazy because some of these people are now dead. Like, this dude is allegedly dead. The families and the victims and stuff are never going to have peace because if the dude's dead, what are you going to do to him?
Yeah, he got to his paradise, but I mean, maybe I guess the only solace that these families could have was that he didn't get caught. He didn't get immediately get the death penalty or whatever, and didn't get to fulfill his his paradise, quote unquote.
Right.
He lived until 2018, which was not that long ago.
Right.
And maybe he mentally anguished over that for 50 years. Who knows? Who knows?
One of those things where, like, I don't know if I've ever told you all this, but
You're the
I have
killer.
yes, I have a built-in, like, guilt factor and or anxiety factor in just in my everyday personality. So, like, the fact that if I ever killed someone, the fact would be is that I'd always be paranoid that I'd be caught. I'd always be guilty. And all of that kind of, like, built up to me, like, I would just live in, like, anguish every single day because I'd be constantly like, oh no, someone's going to come in the house and they're going to find the body below, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm also in the back of my mind, I'm like, there's a fucking body underneath the house. Like, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where
that's Jewish guilt.
I mean, you can call it what you will, but, like, whenever someone's like, oh, I'm gonna murder this person, like, jokingly, I'm like, I could never do it seriously. Like, in self-defense maybe, but not, like, as a serial killer type person. Not, like, actively stalking people and be, like, murdering them, because it just doesn't.
But I think that might be why, like, people like you and I have, like, a fascination with serial killers and with these brutal murders and stuff like that, because to you and I and to Todd and to most people, we don't have the mental capacity to even conceive of these things. So it's so fascinating when we see these things happening, because it's like watching a horror movie or reading a book, or
So,
you know.
and I don't mean to throw one of our friends under the bus, but we all know, like, you talk about it all the time, right? You're like, if there was a murderer in your group of friends or a serial killer, who would it be? And we all know it's David. We all know it's him. And I'm sorry, David, but just the lack of like his emotional empathy is just not there. It's just like he possesses the traits, and that's what truly terrifies me sometimes about him.
I thought that was going to turn into we knew Todd would kill David.
No.
Because I appreciate you earlier saying that I haven't been able to like mentalize and compartmentalize murder, but I've definitely done that. I'm just like, I could see murdering this person. Yeah, they could go away, and I wouldn't be upset.
Well, all right. So we've got some Todd admitting some stuff.
Yeah, we need to edit some stuff.
No, not editing. No.
The best part about this is that if Todd does turn out to be a murderer, I'll be like, well, fuck. I mean, he kind of suddenly dropped the hints.
You knew it was coming.
It was coming. So Zodiac Killer, obviously very famous. Let's talk about one that is a little bit more recent, and I believe, and I could be wrong on this, might be perhaps the most prolific serial killer in modern history.
Jack the Ripper.
Does Samuel Little ring any bells for y'all?
No.
It when you told me about it, I had recognized the name, and I knew that it was like a recent one. And other than that, I didn't know much about it.
It's an old black guy.
So,
yeah.
I mean, you're not wrong. So there's a Washington Post article, which I've lifted a lot of this from just because it's such a good article. It's actually like a 3-part series thing that they did. I highly suggest you read it. It's by Wesley Lowry, Hannah Knowles, and Mark Berman. So I definitely suggest you the article if you have a chance. But I'm going to kind of open with it just to give you a little bit of history about it. Samuel Little guided his car to a stop in a secluded area off Route 27 near Miami and cut the engine. Before long, Mary Brosley had straddled his lap. He started playing with her necklace. He met her at a nearby bar, drinking away the final hours of 1970. She was a frail, vulnerable woman, about 5'4" and anorexic, barely 80 pounds. The tip of her left pinky finger was missing, sliced off in a kitchen accident, and she walked with a limp from hip surgery. Brosley said that she had left a series of lovers and 2 children in Massachusetts after endless confrontations about her drinking. Estranged from her family, struggling to survive, she was the kind of woman who might disappear from the face of the earth without attracting much notice. Little admired the way the moonlight illuminated her pale throat. I had desires, strong desires to choke her, he would later tell the police. I just went out of control, I guess. On New Year's Day, 1971, Mary Brosley, 33, had become the first known victim of a man since recognized as the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history. Over more than 700 hours of videotaped interviews with police that began in May of 2018, Little, now 80, has confessed to killing 93 people. Virtually all of them women, in a murderous rampage that has spanned 19 states in more than 30 years. So, I bring up this story because it's also very... there's some stuff in the news that kind of is related to this. So, he is a black gentleman, person of color. And I would like you to try and guess how many victims of his were white, were Hispanic, Native American.
So I shouldn't have the FBI website up that shows me.
No.
So I don't have this information up, so I am truly guessing.
So yeah, I just take a guess.
So speaking as a white person in 2021, we have it coming. So I would assume 100% of it would be white people.
Wrong.
So even though Brosley, the first victim, was white, at least 68 of Little's victims were black. At least 3 were Hispanic. 1 was Native American. Several had mental disabilities. At least 1 was a transgender woman.
I was going to say, there doesn't seem to be a theme.
There isn't, other than woman.
Well, you say that.
Oh.
So he would basically refer to his victims as succulent fruits that he could enjoy without
that word is worse
penalty.
than moist.
He said, I would go back to the same city sometimes and pluck me another grape. How many grapes do y'all got on the vine here? He said. He boasted of avoiding people who would not be immediately missed. For example, he said, I'm not going to go over there into the white neighborhood and pick out a little teenage girl. That strategy, coupled with tactics that left little physical evidence, was highly effective.
He has 10 confessions for Los Angeles alone.
Hmm?
So, I'm looking at FBI.gov has an entire thing on him.
Yep.
Including, he drew pictures of all of his victims.
Yes, so I wanted to get to that. So
That's
basically,
horrifying.
he has a very good memory, which is not unheard of in serial killers. That seems to be basically a lot of serial killers will tend to be genius level IQs,
Or just smart, but obsessive makes them do certain things very well.
Correct. And in some cases, some will have like a photographic memory or things like that. Things they'd be like, oh, I wish people would use this for good. Well, unfortunately, that's not the way the world works. He has produced lifelike drawings of dozens of his victims because he also happens to be an artist.
Yeah, sure. We'll call it art. Yeah,
He has, and basically, he has also provided police with precise details about a majority of their murders, variably affected by strangulation.
And Jim, you want to know another part about this? You can watch all of his confessions on YouTube.
Oh, great.
Because
that's the modern serial killers.
The FBI uploaded them to YouTube.
So, and this is the crazy part, if he hadn't confessed... If he hadn't confessed, none of this would have been solved.
So he came forward.
Oh, he told them. Yeah,
Yes.
Oh, so
okay.
Then was like, oh, also I killed all these people.
This is like what these pictures are nightmarish.
He killed somebody in Houston, according to him. It just says unmatched confession. Black female between 25 to 28 years old, killed between 1976 and 1979. Or in 1993.
Or
basically,
this is horrifying.
So,
wonder where in Houston.
This is the crazy part.
Isn't it?
Is that this is becoming a reoccurring thing, especially in this quote from the former FBI agent who worked on, he's like, just some of the Bureau's highest profile cases for the FBI. He is basically like, look, here's a troubling truth about the U.S. criminal justice system. Is it possible to get away with murder if you kill people whose lives are already devalued by society? Yes. Could it happen again today? The answer is, of course, yes. I'd like to talk to you just very briefly about the Gabby Petito case.
Oh.
This is obviously still developing. We don't know the full details. I'm not going to really get into it. Here's the thing. How much media coverage have you seen about this?
It's consumed most media.
It's insane. And the thing is that there's people of color, it doesn't matter, apparently.
There are hundreds of people of color missing right now. that don't
Right.
get talked about.
So, like, for instance, do y'all remember Elizabeth Smart?
I do from
Y'all- Do y'all remember Kaylee Anthony?
Who?
Yeah.
Kaylee Anthony?
Casey Anthony's daughter.
Oh.
Mhm.
Oh. Yeah. Sad.
So, for instance, there's a guy named David Robinson. He's been trying to look for his
Basketball
son,
player?
Daniel. I don't know.
No.
A 24-year-old geologist who disappeared on June 23rd in Buckeye, Arizona. Police found his car in a ravine, but there has been little progress in locating him since his disappearance. We don't get the same level of urgency, Robinson told Holton. For as much as I really hate to say this, sometimes I think race is a factor.
Oh, 100%.
This is the scary part. There were 543,000 people reported missing in 2020. How much of those would you like to think are people of color, percentage-wise?
About 90.
40%.
So here's the thing about this particular case, not the other ones. I think a large factor is she was already in the public eye, and so was he.
Mm.
So that probably didn't help the media stir. But I 100% agree. Like, without getting an Amber Alert on my phone or a Silver Alert for whenever Geoff gets lost, I don't know if people are missing. It does, regardless of color. I think in this particular case, like I said, Gabby Petito was an influencer, so she was already in the media, so it made it a bigger news story. But there's got to be a better way.
I have removed myself from that news cycle. I don't.
I was out of it.
I know of it, but I'm so far removed from traditional like media because I don't watch TV.
When Dog the Bounty Hunter got involved, that's whenever I was like, excuse me, what?
Jesus. It's just, listen.
First of all, I used to love Dog the Bounty Hunter, the show.
Same.
And then I remember him getting raided by the U.S. Marshals.
Yeah, he's like, garbage.
Oh, he's not a good person. Cool, moving on. But then whenever he's like, I'm going to help.
This is the
really
thing.
What we want?
This is the thing with this particular gentleman. Who's not a gentleman, but
You mean Dog?
Fucked up dude. No, not Dog. I don't care about
Oh,
Dog.
the dead guy, Brandon Laundrie or whatever.
No. I'm talking about Samuel Little. We're going back to Samuel Little.
Oh, he's old. Yeah.
He's old. So basically, there's a pattern with him. He started basically when he was 13. He was stealing a bicycle. 2 years later, he got arrested in Omaha for burglary. He was then a year later charged with breaking into a furniture store. He solicited a prostitute in Bakersfield. He had a DUI. He shoplifted. Petty criminal things, I would say, right? Like, not like, oh, he's a murderer. But it's interesting because he was profiled in 1976 by a reporter because basically he was given permission to paint a massive mural in the jailhouse, and it had Betsy Ross, Sitting Bull, Benjamin Banneker, who I don't know who that is, and I apologize because I've never heard of that before until just now. When he was 35, he basically was like, I am looking forward to the day I can get out and open a studio on the beach. The next time I'm out, it's do or die. He told the reporter he had been jailed 16 times, although records suggest it was more like 34. The article appeared headlined 16-time loser finds himself. By then, according to his recent confessions, he had already killed more than a dozen women. And this is the problem. Also, it's not like, oh, the police weren't doing what they should. There's other things that happened with this, like, for instance, a dead woman. There was a dead woman who had decayed beyond recognition. She carried no ID. They weren't sure how she got there. The medical examiner incorrectly estimated that she had been between 50 and 60 years old, and she had been aground for 2 months. But the thing with strangulation is the person who's impaired by drugs or alcohol, they're easier to suffocate. And also, fun fact, if you're younger, you have a more than flexible hyoid bone and thyroid cartilage, making fractures less likely. So that's fun.
Jeff, I'm just letting you know, none of those facts were fun.
Yeah, totally fun. We're having a cheerful time here.
Nope.
So in the case of Brosley, his first victim, her body lay decomposing for weeks before it was discovered, allowing physical clues to degrade. By the time they had found her, they weren't even sure that Jane Doe had been murdered. The woman's blood alcohol was so high, it was possible that she had dropped dead. For the record, it was between 0.29 and 0.37.
So
They deemed the
that's
death that's pretty fucking high.
and quadruple the legal limit.
Uh-huh. They deemed the death suspicious, but did not label a homicide despite the fact that someone had buried the body. What the fuck? They're just like, oh, someone buried the body, heard her, she died of her own accord. Heard her.
That's how it works.
So it's just baffling to me. There's if you look at the article, they did a really great job. There's like different pieces of evidence, there's newspaper clippings, and it does a really good job of just explaining like exactly how we got here. I'm still puzzling as to like why he started to confess.
I mean, what's it gonna help or hurt? A lot of times you see these confessions just come from people that are like, I'm already at the end of my rope. It's not like anything else is gonna happen.
Right. So
Like an arrogance.
Yeah.
I suppose so. And it's one of those things where he's gotten to the point where he's like, well, I'm old, there's not much you're going to be able to do to me, maybe as well, I think it's
also, if nothing can be found, it's not like he could be charged with it. Like, he admitted to 90, they found 50.
right.
I mean, he could be charged with the 50, which I don't know if he is or not. But, I mean, what are they going to do about those 40? I mean, it doesn't change anything for him.
That is true.
I don't like it.
No.
Well, and this is the thing, this is the reason why I brought it up is because it's someone who I had no idea this had happened until I read this article. I literally had to search for this. I did not know he was the most prolific killer in U.S. history. You always think of Ted Bundy. You think of other people that you would consider to be famous. This person isn't famous. Not that I believe he should be, but it kind of illustrates the fact that he is a person of color, and his story is not. And yet his story, even though he has murdered so many people, is not widely known, I would say.
Right.
I even brought this up tonight.
Oh.
I
appreciate it.
Oh, actually, he's passed away.
Oh, he did?
Good.
Like
Yeah,
recently?
the man authorities say was the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history, with 60 nearly confirmed victims, has died Wednesday in California.
Like
This
Black
was
Wednesday, or?
this was December 30th, 2020 is when this article was posted.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In 2018, he opened up to Texas Ranger James Holland, who had been asked a question about a killing it turned out Little commit. He didn't commit. During approximately 7 hours of interviews, however, Little provided details of scores of slayings only the killer would know.
No.
Nothing he's ever said has been proven to be wrong or false.
No, I should.
The numbers dwarf those of Green River Killer Gary Ridgway, 49, yep. John Wayne Gacy, 33, and Ted Bundy, 36.
Yep. and it's so, and I know we're approaching 2 hours at this point, but when Henry Lee Lucas, which if you don't know about Henry Lee Lucas, look it up. It's fucking crazy. When he got caught, he literally had to drive Texas Rangers and state troopers and whatnot all throughout the states that he murdered in, literally taking them to place to place to place to place to place, and like people like would be at restaurants and like the cops would just be eating a meal with Henry Lee Lucas, like this very famous at that point serial killer, just going on a fucking morbid scavenger hunt. They'll never get to do that with Samuel Little, though.
Well, and this is the thing. So the only reason he was caught. He was arrested on drug charges. His DNA linked him to 3 California killings.
Always something.
It's always something other than the thing,
right?
It's fucking Al Capone all over again.
Yeah,
and that's the crazy part. Like he wouldn't be in prison unless something else happened. So there could be someone just doing the same thing, never being caught, being very careful, and they won't be caught until they get fucking arrested for DUI or some shit.
Yep, I think that's what happened with the BTK killer.
Yep,
got a speeding ticket, and then they like ran his shit, and they're like, yeah, you're coming with us.
So he basically became really good friends with the Texas Ranger, who was bribing him with like grits and Dr. Pepper, and pizza.
God damn it.
But then the other piece of it is like he hoped his confessions might exonerate anyone wrongly convicted of his crimes.
What a psychopath.
He said, I say if I can help someone get out of jail, then God might smile a little bit more on me.
Fuck off.
Yeah. So, and he also said, and this is the last quote I'll use because I don't like to give this guy too much. I don't think there was another person who did what I like to do, he told 60 Minutes. I think I'm the only one in the world. That's not an honor, that is a curse.
Ugh.
So,
what a bag of dicks.
That is the story of Samuel Little. Fuck you. And I don't think I've ever said fuck you to a serial killer on the podcast, but fuck you to all serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
Garbage. Hopefully someone doesn't break into my house tonight.
R.I.P. Jeff.
Anyways, so does anyone else have any other stories before we wrap this up?
Before Jim does his closing one, I have a piece of media that I think people should read. We talked about it earlier today in our group thread, or was it a couple days ago? Doesn't matter. The creepiest thing that I've ever read that like kind of shook me a bit is the Enigma of Amigara Fault. We talked about it earlier. I don't remember who's read it. Basically, I'm not going to spoil too much, but there's weird holes in the mountain shaped like people. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Is called, once again called the Enigma of Amigara Fault.
Yeah.
Look it up. There's an imager thing. You can read the entire manga. It is. It is.
Is it Junji
manga.
Ito?
Yes, it sure is.
Okay. All the good horror manga is
exactly.
Junji Ito.
For the people that are reading manga for the first time, it is top right to bottom left. Top right, bottom left. So, enjoy. And I just reread it while y'all were talking, and it freaked me out the whole way.
Yeah, I don't appreciate that. All right, Jim.
All right. So I got one more story. It's untitled, but here we go. I did not mean to sodomize Dick Cheney. I mean, I'm not even gay. Not that it matters.
No.
No?
No. God damn it. No.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Oh, God.
Man.
I can't handle it.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you all for listening to Spooky Scary Skeletons Volume 4. It's been a real pleasure. God damn it, I knew Jim was going to do that. How did I know? I'm
Happy
so sorry.
Halloween!
It's
Happy
art.
Halloween. Happy Halloween.